Alright, good night and welcome back to the channel. Tonight we want to take a look at the programming language or a site per se called Scratch. It was introduced I think by MIT, and so the site that we go to I'll put in the description. It's scratch.mit.edu, and what it does is that it allows you to create small animations, small programs, small games, right? And it is designed I think especially for kids. And so it gives the child a chance to learn algorithm, a chance to learn different programming languages, right? Or a chance to learn programming concepts. So I've been teaching Pascal to the students over the past years, and I've noticed that we still have problems with them understanding actual programming. And so I've been doing a little bit of algorithm on the side with them before the programming language. We have tried some Python while we're doing the Raspberry Pi, and I found this Scratch program, and this Scratch program works well for us. I think the students really understand the concepts, and from it we have moved into from creating small animations, creating small storylines, to actually creating loops and saving to a list using the Scratch program. And they really seem to have been getting the concept, so I decided that, you know what, I'll share this with you guys so that you guys can try it at home too and see what you come up with, right? So when you look at all those small games and animations found online, for example, the Dora and the Go Diego game that the kids love so much, these are things that you can create, and of course you can always save it to their site, right? So we'll go through tonight the introduction, give you a chance to play around with some of the different features, and of course I want you to try some of these at home, right? And then hopefully the hope is that we can move into a little bit more advanced level, start talking about variables, start talking about keeping scores, start talking about making games, make the stories more interesting, create movements, right? So all that we'll see if we can package into this Scratch playlist for you. So let's jump on the computer and get into it. Hello, like this. All right, so here we are. The first thing we want to do is to look for the Scratch program. So we're looking at Scratch, Imagine Program and Share. And again, it gives you a little bit of background about the website itself and who created it, right? And all the concept behind it, so you guys can go ahead and read through that. So like I mentioned, Scratch is one of those projects of the Lifelong Kindergarten Group at MIT Media Labs. And of course, it's free of charge, so we get to use it, we get to create from it. So one of the first things we want to do is let's click on Create and see if we can look at, jump right into the examples. Of course, the site does offer tutorials, it does offer examples that you can look at. And so whenever you get stuck, then feel free to look at some of the tutorials found online. Again, keep in mind that I'm only giving you the introduction to it, right? The creativity and what you want to generate from this comes from you. So
with Scratch,
right
you can make
that,
your own stories,
you can get the different
games,
tutorials from it, right?
And animations.
And it gives you a bunch of stuff that you can do. So just to give you an idea of what is taking place on the screen here, on the left hand side here, you have the different controls that you can use. So there's motion, there's looks for how the sprite will look, there is sound that you can incorporate, there is different events and controls, there is sensing if you want to take in data, there is different mathematical operators that you can use, along with variables and creation of lists and various blocks available for you. Apart from that, there are some advanced features that you could add in to the Scratch program itself to use it in other things that you might want to do. The other tab talks about costume, and the costume is specifically for the different sprites that are available. And then the third tab talks about the various sounds available that is given on the site. And of course, I'll show you guys how to add in more sound or create your own sound as needed. So the right hand side, if we move here in the middle, this is our work area. So this is where you'll be dragging your code into. right? Based on what you want or different functionalities that you want from the sprite. And then of course these are the sprites that you're dealing with. So by default it gives you this little cat as a sprite, and you get to manipulate that and have it do a bunch of stuff. If you want to add in a new sprite, and we'll start with one, but let me show you this. If you want to add in a new sprite, the Scratch program, if you click there, has a bunch of sprites available for you, right, that you can use. So we can see the default we're using is the cat, and it shows the different animation or different costumes available for that. So say for example we wanted a cat and some other animal. Let's use Mr. Dinosaur, right? As soon as we click on Mr. Dinosaur appears in the work area here. And so we get to then create a storyline, which is what we're going to do first, with the two characters or the two sprites as they are called. We can also add in a background for this by clicking on the stage here and choosing backdrop. And so we can have one of these backgrounds. I think it also gives you the option to upload your own picture into the background. So let's place Mr. Dinosaur and Mr. Cat into, for example, on the beach. Right? Let's do the beach. Right? But there you have Mr. Cat. You can move him around. Mr. Dinosaur, you can move him around. And of course, you get to program both of these sprites and tell them exactly what you want them to do, what you want them to say, the way you want them to behave, right? If you want them to dance, if you want them to jump, all of these features are available for you. So let's start by creating or having Mr. Cat do some action for us, right? And I'm calling him Mr. Cat and I'm calling him Mr. Dinosaur for our sake, right? So let's say we want Mr. Cat to move forward a couple steps whenever we click on the sprite, right? We can go to, first of all, we can go to events and say when I click this sprite, and you notice the events are created for you. And of course, in programming language, in different programming languages, we look at these as functions, right? So these are already created for you. And so the only thing you have to do is drag it in. So for the most part, I can do when I click on Sprite. For us, if you're creating some sort of storyline, you're creating some sort of animation, and you want them to seem like they're having a discussion, then I would just go with whenever you click on the green flag, which is for go. So let's select whenever you click on the green flag, and again, it's just a matter of dragging and dropping it in. So I want to use this. If I don't want to use it, I simply drag it back to the left hand side, right? So whenever I click on the green flag, I have my sprite selected, sprite 1, which is Mr. Cat. I want that Mr. Cat moves to the right. Let's do 10 steps. So I choose from motion, I choose move, and I'll say 10 steps. Just to show we can change it, let's make it into 8 steps. So I want Mr. Cat to move 8 steps to the right. So that's one line of code, right? So let's click on the green flag and see what happens. When I click on the green flag, notice Mr. Cat moves 8 steps. Seems like 1 step to you, but he actually moved 8 steps along, right? Now, apart from the 8 steps, I want Mr. Cat to turn a couple degrees. So I'll drag turn in there, and I'll say I want Mr. Cat to turn, let's do 180 degrees. So it means that Mr. Cat will turn this way, right? So when I click run or go, he moves forward and he turns 180 degrees, which is what I told him to do, right? So you get the concept that you can have or you can manipulate the sprite based on the code that you drag in, right? Let me turn him back. So I'll say turn Mr. Cat again. If I just run him another 180, he should straighten back to 180 degrees, right? So you get to apply a little bit of mathematics, right? A little bit of angles. You also get to do a little bit of what we call critical thinking by putting the code together. And of course, if you are an adult looking at this, then it's something nice to have the child actually sit down and try to figure out how to move the sprite around, right? The other thing then we can do is that we can have Mr. Cat, and let's have him do something else. We can have Mr. Cat to do a sound. And so we'll say have Mr. Cat play the sound, and the only sound available to us is the sound meow, right? If not, we could record our own sound if we wanted to place in what we wanted in terms of sound. So right now, if I click on go, it will move 8 steps. Mr. Cat will turn 180 degrees and he will play a sound or he'll make a noise. So let's try that. Right? So you notice he moved 8 steps, turned 180 degrees, and started the sound. Now let's straighten back Mr. Cat. But let's assume we wanted Mr. Cat to say something. Or we wanted him to simulate as if he was seeing something. We can then choose under look, we can have Mr. Cat say, for example, hello, right? So I'm going to take out the sound so we don't have the interruption of sound and throw it back into the bin. And I'm going to have Mr. Cat say hello to Mr. Dinosaur. So in here, you drag in the say under the look tab, under the look event, we drag in the say, and in the white space provided, you can type in what you want your character to say. So I'll have him say there, he'll say, hello, Mr. Dinosaur, right? So he'll say, hello, Mr. Dinosaur for 2 seconds, and then that will come off the screen. And we also want him to change costume, right? So I'll throw this in one time. And change costume means that Mr. Cat will change whatever he had in or had on, or change his direction. Now, changing costume creates animation, and we'll talk about that in one of the other videos in the future. So we'll play that, click on go, and see how that goes. So there you have it. So it looks like Mr. Cat says, hello, Mr. Dinosaur, right? And he does so for 2 seconds. If I wanted that to stay longer on screen, then I could extend the time from 2 seconds to maybe 4 seconds or 5 seconds, right? Whatever timing you want. Again, it's up to you, right? It's your creativeness. So let's jump to Mr. Dinosaur now and say we want Mr. Dinosaur. So I'll click on Dinosaur here. I want Mr. Dinosaur to do something now, and you'll notice that Mr. Dinosaur's code is blank. And so I'll have to then add into Mr. Dinosaur the things that I want for him to say. So I had Mr. Cat move 8 steps, turn 180 degrees, say hello, Mr. Dinosaur for 2 seconds, and he changed his costume, right? What I'll do is that so the rotation doesn't look too bad, I'll change it to 360 degrees, which means that Mr. Cat will do a flip, right? And after 2 seconds, his whatever words he was saying will disappear, and I want Mr. Dinosaur to then tell Mr. Cat, oh, hello, Mr. Cat, right? So we'll click on Mr. Dinosaur. I will say for my event, when the green flag is clicked again, right? So that means that whenever I click this green flag, it will do whatever is here in the coded area. So when that green flag is clicked, I want for Mr. Dinosaur to wait. So I'm looking for a wait time. So because we had the first one where the cat was talking for 2 seconds, we can have Mr. Dinosaur now wait for a couple seconds and then say something back after the time has passed, right? So let me see. So we'll jump in here and we'll have Mr. Dinosaur say, hello, Mr. Cat. And I'll extend his time to, let's say, 6 seconds. So his one will stay longer on screen. And that's pretty much it. So let's run that. So when we run this now, it should run both codes for both sprites or both actors, right? So go. Notice what happens. Mr. Cat moves 8 steps, turn 360 degrees like we coded, and told Mr. Dinosaur, hello, Mr. Dinosaur. And for Mr. Dinosaur, all he said was, hello, Mr. Cat. We didn't have him move, right? So again, let me run it to show you. And so the conversation started, right? So go ahead, pause the video, see if you can do that on your own. See if you can create, first of all, have Mr. Cat say something, use the sound, have him rotate, create another character, right? Or get another sprite in and see if you can have that sprite talk to the other one, right? So pause the video now, see if you can get that done. All right, so I'm hoping you had everything went well for you. You got the characters conversing, you had them doing some action, right? One of the next thing I want to show you is how to have the character do something for a little bit or a longer time, right? So Mr. Dinosaur, for example, let's say that Mr. Dinosaur is very happy and we want Mr. Dinosaur to just spin for a while, right? Mr. Dinosaur will do a couple flips because he's happy to see Mr. Cat. So let's click on Mr. Dinosaur sprite and we will click on repeat from and this is under the control tab, right? Click on repeat and we'll say repeat 10 times. We'll do motion and we'll have Mr. Dinosaur turn 360 degrees, right? So Mr. Dinosaur will do a complete rotation and he'll do this for 10 times because he's so happy to see Mr. Cat. So let's click on the flag now to go. And notice they're talking, Mr. Dinosaur. Mr. Dinosaur says, hey, hello, Mr. Cat. And should have repeated the flip, which we don't see because it needs a delay, right? So let's put in a delay. So we'll put something that says hello within it, and let's see what happens. So there we go. Mr. Dinosaur says hello, Mr. Cat. He's waiting for 6 seconds. He says hello, and he should have turned 360 degrees, which might be too fast for him. Let's change it to 15 degrees so we can see the turn. See how that looks. Remember, you can always pop up your animation to full screen if you want to see this in full screen, right? So I can click here and it will go full screen. So you notice the rotation now, and I'll put it full screen to show you. I can click the green flag. The cat moves forward 8 steps. It says hello, Mr. Dinosaur. Mr. Dinosaur answers and says hello, Mr. Cat, and he does his flips, right? And he says hello, right? So Mr. Dinosaur is happy to see Mr. Cat. So we looked at, first of all, the layout for the program itself, right? We know that the coding is to the left-hand side. We also know that our work area is here. So whenever we want some sample code or some code to put in, we can drag that in from the left-hand side into the work area. And our final product, or after the code has been compiled and it shows and we want to see what it does, we have that over on the right-hand side, right? With our sprites. And of course, we notice that we can change and we can add in sprite. And you can also remove sprite by clicking on the garbage bin there. And we can also add in our custom-made backdrops, or the backdrops that are already given to us by the program. So go ahead and create something, create some sort of conversation, have the characters move around, and hopefully in the next lesson we can look more at how we can animate and move objects around the screen and have objects interact with each other. So that's it for tonight. Go out and create something new. Alright, so there you have it. I'm hoping you learned something from the video. If there's something you liked about the video or something you found interesting, please feel free to leave it in the comment. Also, if you really like the series and you want to see more of this series, please again leave it in the comment. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button somewhere down there. Also hit the notification bell so you can see when I post new videos, and of course give the video a thumbs up. Okay? So again, hope you enjoyed. In the meantime, go geek yourself, guys.